from Fox 40 in Northern California.
When will America be back open for business?
It's a grim milestone. The U.S. now reporting more coronavirus deaths than any country in the world.
This is a moment we need to make tough decisions.
COVID-19 attacking every aspect of our lives.
We direct a statewide order for people to stay at home.
Social distancing guidelines, all of it aimed at stopping the spread of coronavirus.
This is a moment in time, and we will meet this moment together.
Fox 40 presents Pandemic Behind the Headlines, an inside look at how journalists are keeping you informed and keeping hope on the front lines.
I'm your host, Tom Long, photographer and podcast producer for Fox 40. Today, we have a special edition of Pandemic Behind the Headlines, a story of affliction and of victory. Jim Cassis.
Well, I'm 78 years old.
Battling the coronavirus, he has walked through the valley of the shadow of death and come out on the other side.
You don't appreciate what you have until you almost don't have it.
This is Jim's story.
I'm not a giver-upper, but I just fight it all the way. I've been semi-retired now for, about 8 years, I guess, 7 or 8 years. I'm an avid skier. I'm an avid golfer. I practice martial arts. I have a beautiful wife that saved my life, and 4 wonderful children that really went to bat for me when it looked pretty bleak.
When did you first know that you had COVID-19?
When I was in the hospital. I didn't suspect it at all. I started coming down with symptoms when we were in Mexico on about the 16th of March. And I thought I was getting a bad cold, so I started taking one of those cold tablets that helps you breathe, and it just kept getting worse, so I went and got a Z-Pack, and I took that, and I kept getting worse, so we decided to come home. We jumped on a plane on the 21st, and I just kept getting worse here. Finally, I think it was the morning of the 24th or the 25th, I passed out. She called the first responders, and I kept telling her, I'm not going to the hospital. I am not going to the hospital. And they got here, and I wouldn't come out of the bedroom. And finally, they said, well, just come down and talk to us. So I walked down to the end of the house and passed out there. So they loaded me on the ambulance and took me to the hospital, and they did a test on me there, and it came out to be positive. I had actually done a test through my doctor the day I got home on the 21st, but they take so long to get the results. I went from the 21st to the 25th not knowing I had it, and when I went in the hospital, I still hadn't gotten the results from the one my doctor took, but the hospital turned them around in 24 hours, so then I knew.
On life support for 10 days, and no family. That's all I could think about is getting home and walking. Ran out of energy, ran out of everything, and I dug deep in my stomach and there was nothing there to give.
Even with all the doctors working to get Jim better, one evening, at the height of the effects of the disease.
There was one night when I placed the time that it was the closest to death that I really felt the power of prayer come through. I faced God. I mean, I did. The Blessed Virgin is my go-to person when I pray, and I saw her face. I asked her for help. When I said the final prayer to the Blessed Virgin, I felt myself get over the top and past it, and I just really felt like I was going to make it at that point. The high point of the whole thing was was that feeling that I'm going to make it. I finally feel like I'm going to make it.
Jim was taken off the ventilator April 8th, a landmark day for Jim and his wife, Debbie.
I almost lost her 2 years ago. She had an inoperable glioblastoma, which is the deadliest of deadly brain cancers. And it was a kind of a symbolic thing. They took me off of life support 2 years to the day that a doctor removed her inoperable tumor. So April 8th is a real memorable day for us.
Soon after being taken off the ventilator, Jim's rehabilitation began.
The nurses, et cetera, are wonderful. The rehab nurse got me out of bed and had me stand up. I couldn't stand up on my own. They had to actually lift me up, put me on my feet, and we kind of marched in place. That was my first day of exercise. True thing, he said, this is not a matter of feet or inches. It's a matter of fractions of inches, and you just take it a little bit at a time. So that's what I've done.
As Jim continued to make progress, the dream of his release from the hospital became a reality.
They released me suddenly. It was like Friday, they said, no, you're going to get out on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then on Saturday, they said Tuesday or Wednesday. Sunday, they said Tuesday or Wednesday. But by Monday, I was walking all up and down the halls of the hospital. I have a lot of stairs in my home, and they wanted to be sure I could get up and down the stairs with a walker. So they taught me how to use the walker. Went up a flight of 9 and down it. I did that several times. And I guess they were impressed enough with my stability, they let me come home.
What was that like for you?
I was elated. You know, I hadn't seen anybody for 21 days, and my wife pulled up in my car, and I tell you, I almost jumped out of the wheelchair and shouted for joy. It was just so exciting to see her. She'd been my rock solid support, and to see her face and have her come over and give me a hug, the best thing that could have happened to me.
Welcome back.
Hey, Chris.
When you got home, they had a drive-by parade for you. What was it like seeing your whole neighborhood welcome you home?
Well, my wife and kids did that. I didn't really want them to. I thought it was kind of a silly idea at first, but I'll tell you what.
Hi, how you doing, sweetheart?
You know you've got the best family.
Seeing all my friends come by and wave.
Right next week, Dennis.
And giving the thumbs up and the cheers, God, I felt really good. I just felt all that support, and the prayers that had been given for me really lifted me up again, and I was really happy they had done it then. It was it's hard to explain, because I don't really much like being the center of attention on things, but that felt really, really good.
What would you want to say to the community that came together to support your homecoming?
Well, the same thing I was telling them that day. Thank you for being there through this whole thing.
Thank you.
You know, it's hard for my wife. She's got to drive me every place we go. She's got to drive me to the doctor. But she hasn't had to cook since I've been home in 3 weeks. Our friends, they bring lunch, they bring dinner, they call, they give us support. They're still praying for me. It's pretty awesome. And what can you say besides I love you and thank you?
Is there any advice that you would want to share with someone who may be going through a similar situation, fighting for their life?
Well, don't give up. That's the best thing I can say. Don't stop praying and rely on the support of your friends, and just never give up. Just fight it all the way. And if you have the depth of the disease that I had, that was the real bad kind, there's no way to get around it. You're going to have to fight. It's a miserable experience. I don't think I've ever experienced anything in my life as miserable feeling as that ventilator was. But you got to do it. ventilator is the only way to go at this point, so don't fight that either. Just don't give up and keep the prayers going. You know, I'm not a guy that prayed very much. I started praying when my wife got sick, and it's kept her alive for 2 years longer than they said she was going to make it, and she's still going strong. Her last MRI was clear, so I'm a firm believer now. That's my last message, is don't give up. And they're going to find a cure, they'll find a vaccine, and hopefully my antibodies will help do that.
This is a very tough time for everybody.
With a three, and he scores!
You don't realize how much sports is intricate to your life until it's not there.
I'm your host, Tom Long, photojournalist for Fox 40 News. Today we're going inside sports to see how this pandemic has changed the game, so to speak, both professionally as well as personally. We'll be talking with Andrew Wheeler-Amanu, number 28, who plays defensive midfield for Sac Republic FC, Scott Moak, PA announcer for the Kings, as well as Jim Crandall, sports anchor for Fox 40. Closing down sports and turning out the lights. What happens now? That's the question sports enthusiasts are left to ask. I want to start with Scott Moak, who, in addition to co-hosting Studio 40 Live on Fox 40, also runs all of the community relations for the Sac Republic FC. And on game nights, he is the PA announcer for the Kings games. Okay, Scott, so I got to ask you this question. Your life is pretty much filled with sports. So how is your life right now?
Well, there's definitely not as much sports, at least games, involved in sports. You know, whether it's marketing or human resources or finance, a lot of people forget that professional teams have, you know, a lot of people working year-round, despite there being a game or not. So I've certainly been able to stay busy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, out of an abundance of caution and at the direction of the National Basketball Association, tonight's game has been postponed.
Okay, you got an arena full of people, and you're the one that has to make the announcement. Everybody go home.
Yeah. That was on one hand not a very fun thing to do, because we knew the reaction was going to be, people were going to be pretty upset, which they were. I think they were upset because, they wanted to see a game. The Kings were on a pretty nice run there, and so I think they were just disappointed. We know that there were also a lot of kids and fans who were there for a first time or celebrating a birthday or other special things going on that, weren't going to happen. So it was a bummer. I mean, hearing the chorus of boos, as I said, the game had been postponed, definitely was not one of my career highlights for sure. But ultimately it was the right thing to do between the NBA, ESPN, the leadership at the Sacramento Kings who decided to call it. It was a very smart move. It looked actually like we were kind of at the beginning of all of it from the perspective of taking those kinds of decisions and making them real.
Good morning, Miss Arnett.
Yeah, you can see the learning curve on both ends.
We do science, we do math.
I'm your host, Tom Long. 6 million students, 1,000 school districts. Learning at home has become a little bit of an experiment. Today we'll be talking about distance learning, how parents are coping with working in place while educating their kids, and how students are dealing with social distancing, disappointments, and the challenges of online classes. I want to start our podcast with a couple of students and get their perspective. Joining us now is Lauren Bernard, a junior, and Cade Church, a senior, both of whom are students at Whitney High School in Rockland, California. Now, Cade, I want to start with you. Personally, where are you at in all of this?
I'd say I'm definitely kind of nearing my edge as far as getting really bored and just kind of missing everything. There's a lot of things that you take for granted in your everyday life that you don't realize how much you miss when you're stuck at home with nothing to do all day.
Lauren, how about you?
It's been it's boring, but at the same time, it's like I know we need to. School's been really weird though.
How has it been weird?
Because some of my classes have figured out how to do the online stuff better than others, and so it's hard to kind of figure out a schedule and what assignments are due what days and stuff like that. Back
to you, Cade. What have you experienced?
I'd say I kind of have I'm more of a lucky student because, I'm so close to graduating that a lot of our teachers are just kind of taking it really easy on us. But I know I have a sister who's a freshman, and she struggles every day with trying to connect with her teachers and her classmates and just trying to keep up. And I think a big part of that is maybe not so much having the motivation to do it, but it's just something that no one's ever done before. So it's a lot of trial and error.
Lauren?
Some of the stuff that we have to turn in online, it doesn't always show up to the teachers, and so they have to request that we submit assignments multiple times.
Okay, now this is a question for both of you. What about friends?
I miss them a lot.
Do you guys talk?
Yeah.
I'd say just because maybe we're younger, we've always kind of grown up with technology, and I'd say connecting with them has been super easy, but it's still not as good as talking in person and seeing them face to face.
Lauren, what kind of things are you missing out on not being at school right now?
There's a lot of like my weights class, we can't really do that, and I'm in ceramics, and we're in the middle of a project, and there's no way to do it at home, which is kind of a bummer. For all the electives and stuff, it's like hard for the teachers to figure out what to do because they need to be in the classroom to do it.
What about this year's prom?
Yeah, I'm missing prom.
Disappointed?
I was really bummed. I already have my dress, and I don't know, I've been looking forward to it for a long time, and it's a bummer that it's not happening anymore.
Yeah. Coming back to you, Cade, through all these changes, what is the biggest disappointment for you?
Well, kind of looking towards the future, it hasn't been officially canceled yet, but it's looking like it's not going to happen, just for me being a senior, I really was looking forward to graduation and just a lot of those things that come with, building yourself up academically all these years through elementary school and middle school and just working towards that final day of graduation and just looking towards the future. And it just kind of sucks that for the first time in who knows how long, it seems like every senior will be missing out on that kind of key memory of their life. And I think that's probably the biggest thing for me.
It has been a challenge, to say the very least.
It's uncharted territory for everybody.
It's just something that no one's ever done before.
I'm your host, Tom Long, photographer and podcast producer for Fox 40. Today, we'll take you behind the scenes and into the music business. We'll be talking with Roger Smith, keyboard player and longtime member of Tower Power. His thoughts on performing, concerns about changes to the industry, and his hope for the future of entertainment coming back from this pandemic.
Let me quickly introduce Tower Power to you, starting right over here on keyboards, Roger Smith.
Well, when was the last time that Tower Power played a gig?
Wow. That was in March. I think it was a week before the shutdown. We were in Napa. We played the Uptown Theater for 2 nights. And right after that, see you later.
What has the time away from your bandmates been like for you?
Well, I miss my soulmates, in that regard. My musical soulmates, because, I've gotten really close to everybody. Because I've been in the band so long, I'm kind of like one of the senior sidemen, if you will. Not original, but been in the band over 20 years. And I've seen a lot of them come and go. But Dave, Doc, Emilio, for a time Rocco, and everybody else, the singers, the horn players, guitar players, and bass players, plural, including myself. I've gotten to be pretty close with them. So we became good friends, like brothers in music. I miss them a lot. I love the music, don't get me wrong, but I miss them as much as the music, if not more.
Now, as far as Tower Power, have you guys found any creative ways to reach your fans?
Yes, I'm trying to keep it tied in. The fact that Garibaldi only lives a few, minutes from me, and Tom, our lead tenor player, and Mark, the bass player, just, bring in a vocalist, this vocalist, or this person from Santana's band, that person from Boss Skaggs' band, because they're all around here. Like setting up a PA and making sure that it translates properly. That's just, engineering work. And so it's just setting it up right, miking everything, making sure it sounds good, and then you broadcast it. Start doing virtual shows like that. Like everybody now is blowing up the bandwidth and doing stuff. And I'm going to be joining that along with my musical buddies, like half the guys in Santana, Tower Power, all the Bay Area players. We're going to start doing once a week and just have special guests come in and just blow it up. And that's it. It's going to have to be on air, or on the internet.
Are you ready to get back to performing live, or do you think safety plays a bigger role on the return timetable?
At my age, safety plays a bigger role because I'm of that age, and I'm a 2-time cancer survivor, so I'm already susceptible. Still undergoing treatments. Even in 15 years, I'm still battling it. But that plays a huge role for me to get on an airplane to fly somewhere. For instance, we're supposed to be up in Seattle at the end of this month. That would mean getting on an airplane, staying in a hotel, being in a small confined place for 5 shows, 4 nights. How do I deal with that? How do I stay safe? How does that work? So yeah, it's safety for me. As bad as I want to play, as bad as I want to get back to it, it's 6 in one hand, half a dozen the other, and it really is perplexing. It's frustrating, but there's nothing I can do about it. Health is paramount.
California's food supply workers remain on the front lines of the state's response to the coronavirus.
Okay, I got the order to go.
I'm really just trying to adapt and survive.
I'm your host, Tom Long. In this time of caution, isolation has become the norm, and as families across the country stay at home, restaurant owners are feeling the bite. Today we'll be talking to one of those owners, his passions, his concerns, and through his hope, what the future of dining out has in store. Here with me today is chef and owner of Mulvaney's B&L in Sacramento, California, Patrick Mulvaney. Patrick, I want to start on kind of a personal note. When did you first know that you had a passion for food and wanted to be a chef?
Well, my mother was a horrible cook, so that was one thing. So it was a matter of survival. And then when I graduated college, I had a degree in English, which qualified me to be a waiter in Manhattan. And it was then I realized I wanted to have a restaurant. But having seen the other owners be up a tree every time the cook walked out, I thought I should learn how to cook a little. I went to Europe and did an apprenticeship. Got fired 6 times in 9 months. And when I came back to America, I was a cook. And so it just kept going, working around the country, and then ended up here in California, fell in love with Sacramento. And 15 years ago, we opened the big old B&L.
What has your COVID-19 experience been like the last several weeks?
Obviously we took it seriously. Probably the end of January, we started heightening our protocols for disinfecting and wiping down tables and chairs. As a restaurant, obviously it's not good marketing to make people sick. So we're conscious and regulated in our practices. So we're concerned about health and safety already. And so we were ramping up. As the pandemic came closer to California, the decisions we were making about how to keep our staff and our customers safe were kind of falling behind the curve. We would make a decision, and by the time it was implemented, there was already a different decision to be made. Our catering business, the banquet business, had already cratered for the first 2 weeks in March. It had disappeared. We had a leading indicator of business going away. So by the time March 14th rolled around, we just said, okay, it's time, right? Let's close and then see where we're going to go from there.
Do you think the restaurant industry as a whole was prepared for this, or can the restaurant industry prepare for something like this?
Well, I think the answer to that is no. I don't think anyone was prepared for this, but I think that what the restaurant does best is react to the unexpected. So in that way, we're used to that, right? We joke about who's the person that you want in the kitchen with you when a bus with 150 people pulls up and says we're hungry, because all of a sudden you're going to be doing something that you totally didn't expect to have to do.
Even though the coronavirus pandemic has caused many sit-down restaurants to close, you and several others seem to have a workable solution, a mini commissary creating quote-unquote family meals for 4 for the community. Explain that a little bit.
There are cooks that are anxious and want to keep cooking. There is food out in the farms. It's not being sold. How do we distribute it? And what do we do best, right? We do hospitality best, making people feel welcome and making them feel cared for. And how are we going to do that? So we looked at where the need was. We decided that what we do is say, hey, we know we can make 100 bags that hold dinner for 4 every day. Lasagnas that we made, right, that are going to be big enough for 4 people to eat. all of our work is a subset of family meal for four.
Okay.
So the elderly, rather than being family meal for four, is 4 meals for a family, right? So one person. So that'll have a lunch, a dinner, a snack, a box of food that'll last a couple of days. So the idea of this as a mini commissary then means that if Mulvaney's can feed 800 and Cannon can feed 800 and Camden and Pincho Yaqui and Alora can each feed 800 a day, that's 4,000 people a day. We can feed a lot of people that way.
And how has that been setting all of this up?
So the first week sure was rocky when the three of us the first day came in and said, okay, we're prepping for tomorrow. And I said, no, we're feeding 400 people in 5 hours. Let's go. That's what cooks do. We say, here's the job and let's get it done. So we did. And now we're in a place where we have a rhythm, right? And we're getting a little better. And for sure, it is a lot of food, but there's a lot of great generosity out there.
Farm workers are the ones that put food on our tables.
The coronavirus outbreak creating hardship for many.
Like doctors and nurses, we need farm workers.
One of the things we haven't talked about is the immigrant workforce. How are you seeing this being affected right now and in the future?
First concern for me, right? Because all of our restaurant family are family and we need to take care of them. Challenging for me and angers me, quite frankly, that these people who are paying their Social Security, paying their unemployment insurance, are not eligible for unemployment insurance, which is infuriating. Even more infuriating is that programs they are eligible for, FMLA, SNAP, food assistance, disability, that when it is time to go off and take advantage of those programs, that they specifically are not, because they have been told that any evidence of government assistance on your record will prevent you from becoming a citizen. What do you do as a parent, right? Your kid's hungry, and what's your choice? Do you have them be hungry today so that they can be a citizen in the future? I just think that's unconscionable. There's a lot of undocumenteds out there too. And those are the people that are buying, that are picking the food that the President of the United States is eating, that Congress people are eating, that you are eating, that I am eating. They are the ones who make our food system run from the very base. And so I would hope that there would be a reckoning sometime in the future to talk about a realistic conversation, not a political argument from left or right, but a centered, human-focused conversation to say, these are the people who make our food system work. And it is our obligation to take care of our brothers in a humane and kind way.
Number one focus is the health of the American public.
We've had a couple people here where they're pretty short of breath.
We, by no stretch, are out of the woods.
I'm your host, Tom Long. We hear about it every day, the coronavirus. And on the front line of this pandemic is our hospitals, labs, and clinicians working to achieve success at defeating this virus, looking ever forward for an answer. Today, we'll be talking with the Dean of UC Davis School of Medicine, Dr. Allison Brashear. Her concerns about the virus, the testing they've developed, the research, and the hope she sees for the future. Now, Dr. Brashear, earlier this year, UC Davis Medical Center treated the patient who was the nation's first known case of community-acquired COVID-19. How did that help shape the research that you're doing now?
That patient was identified the end of February, and on March 2nd, we put together researchers from the lab, from the clinical area, basic sciences, and we all got together and decided that this was something that we had expertise in. That really started the process of developing our own tests, jump-starting our clinical trials, and really working as a team across all the disciplines and between the Sacramento and Davis campus.